One home will come back with a rate of $400. Another one just a few doors down or even streets down will come back at $1,800 in Virginia. It's crazy, isn't it? You may get a pretty good price on a beach house in Virginia Beach with a $1,000 rate, yet you have a home up in the mountains in Roanoke that's double that rate. What in the world is going on with flood insurance pricing in Virginia in 2026? That's exactly what we're talking about in this video. So by the end of this video, you'll know what drives flood insurance pricing in Virginia, what you can and can't do to minimize your pricing. So let's go ahead. Let's get started. So what really drives flood insurance pricing in Virginia on homes like this? We're not talking about homes necessarily that are on the beach in Virginia Beach. However, that could be a contributing factor. Let's talk about what really drives pricing in 2026. It's not what you think. Most people think it's your flood zone. In fact, a flood zone has an impact less than 25% of the time. In fact, the National Flood Insurance Program no longer even uses flood zones to determine your rate in Virginia. What they do use are things like distance to water, replacement cost, flooding frequency, the type of flooding, the elevation of your property, flood loss history. These are all things that have a much bigger impact than your flood zone. But what we have found after helping hundreds of property owners in Virginia, there's really three big rate drivers we're seeing. That is the replacement cost of your property. So let's look at that one first. So let's say you've got one home here, $300,000 replacement cost. If you got another one over here at $500,000, even though you've got the same coverage through the National Flood Insurance Program, you could be looking at rate differences of 30, 40%. Potentially the same thing with private companies. That's how big replacement costs could be on your Virginia flood insurance. Now let's talk about elevation. We're talking about whether a property is negatively elevated below or above what's called the base flood elevation. This is what FEMA thinks flooding can come to. We also see this having a major impact on properties in Virginia, especially if a property has a basement versus not having a basement. Even though they're using the lowest rated floor to determine your rates, we do see this have a big factor. One of the third driving factors we see that have the biggest impact is your distance to water, especially if you're near a floodway. Remember, that's the overflow source. So let's say that you're near a creek, you're near a river, and you're right on the edge of that bank, then you could be in a floodway. This means that this is going to have a major impact on your National Flood Insurance Program rate, and it may eliminate 80% of the options for you in Virginia. So this is what we're seeing, what's really driving rates in Virginia. Here's what doesn't drive your rate, though. It's your deductible. In fact, on average, it saves you about 2.5% going from $1,000 to a $5,000 deductible. Remember that when picking your coverages for your Virginia flood insurance. Of course, contents coverage can drive your rate about 30% as well. You want to make sure you have the right contents coverage. Do you need $100,000 here? Do you need $50,000? That's really a question you want to have for your flood insurance agent, understanding, hey, what's contents coverage going to cover? What's building going to cover? Do I need additional living expenses? All these things as you're going through this process. So let's talk about things you can control, and that's your coverage amounts. Look, your bank's probably going to require you to carry at least $250,000. We recommend at least 80% of your replacement cost to make sure your property is properly protected. However, you want to make sure you said you have the right contents coverage, you have the right additional living expense, all these different things when you're meeting with your agent. Ask these questions. Now, what you have no control over really, though, is going to be the replacement cost. It's going to be your elevation, your distance to water. These are things that you really can't control with a property. So this is what's really driving pricing in Virginia in 2026. I'm Chris with the Flood Insurance Guru, and I want to say thank you for watching today's video.